So 50 seconds to go. Everyone must get into position. There you see the start line on the right-hand side, and then they cannot cross that until the clock hits 0. So we'll see who times it right. Everyone get in their position right now. Canada first to get themselves set up, heading back towards the start line.
Well, here we go now. We see at the top of the screen Spain, bottom left-hand corner of the screen, sorry, is Spain. USA tacking in late, but they're going to control that bottom end of the start line, which has been strong. New Zealand up and foiling with 25 seconds to go. They're at the back of the pack at the moment, but that doesn't mean anything for now. In the middle of the line, Switzerland are well positioned, Great Britain are well positioned, and France needs to hold back on some timing here. I like where the Kiwis are, but is there going to be a gap? I don't see a gap for New Zealand. Here we go, timing crucial. Watch for the line to turn red. It's going to be France at the top of the line, United States at the bottom. Who's called it right? Great start by Rottwell, Denmark. Can they get round Switzerland? They're going to have a fast angle in towards Mark 1, and the Danes, can they roll over Emirates, Great Britain?
So the race is on here at the first race of the Mubadala New York Sail Grand Prix. It is Nikolai Sehested and Rockwell, Denmark. On their left-hand side, though, you've got Giles Scott and Emirates GBR as they make the turn here at Mark 1, and we are up and racing in New York.
Oh, Lady Liberty's got a look at the Brits on the inside there, and Emirates Great Britain controlled the inside. Great boat speed from the British there. They turn away at Mark 1 first. They will control things. I expect the wind to start getting light ahead of them. Early manoeuvre after Mark 1 should be a strong move. Here go the Australians. Oh, United States, they missed the jibe. Big mistake by United States. They're off the foils. That's going to be so costly.
Better turn up when we can, guys. Yeah. Put the board up with the front. Yeah.
Oh, they had a great start there, Todd, but they just tried to force it through the jibe. Forcing it hard.
And look at the speed difference here on Australia, 56 kilometers an hour compared to 40 on the Danish. Aussies are just rolling over the fleet now.
Not quite the speeds we saw, Emily, in practice yesterday, but that wind has died down. Hopefully it fills in over the next 2 races.
Oh, coming in here. Coming into gate 2, Todd, and this will be an interesting decision. Do they turn back to Governor's Island, or is it left turn and hope to find more wind to the bottom of our screen?
From what we saw in that practice lap before they started racing, we saw more wind away from Governor's Island, but the boundary is a lot closer on that side.
Gate 2, Australia on the inside. They've got the right of way here over Denmark. Denmark need to keep clear at the bottom of the course. Oh, if he can sail him off here, Denmark, if he can stay out that yellow circle, it's going to be so tight. Almost match racing manoeuvre here. Australia should have rights to turn on the inside. Will Rottwell split? Communication tricky on board there. Tom Johnson not totally sure of Nikolai's plans, but it's just done enough. It's less wind down at the bottom of the course here, Todd.
So as they make the turn at gate number 2, it is Emirates GBR, the winners of the last race in Halifax. Australia sits in second, Switzerland's moved into third, and then it's Denmark, France, and New Zealand. Tough sledding so far for Spain, Germany, and the USA.
I think that's what showed us. It could be the story of the day. If you get tangled up around other boats, you just lose a lot of distance very quickly. Australia and Denmark were really only a few metres behind Great Britain. They fell off the foils fighting each other, and Emirates Great Britain have shot away. But look at the wind. Bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Denmark is looking in a good position right now.
And meanwhile, France can't seem to get moving at all here. Still 2 hulls in the water.
This is the first race of 3. They're on leg 3 of 7. It'll be a quick turnaround, but right now, Emirates GBR, Giles Scott have this thing figured out. And Nathan Outers, the wind whisperer, and the Swiss are in second.
Wind across the course at the moment here. GBR in 26 kn/h of pressure. Danish slightly less at the bottom of the screen.
Lisa, we've seen some big clouds out there and some big splits in the fleet. Have you got any idea of which side of the course looks good from the water?
Well, I think where Denmark went, they had more pressure, so they did that left turn. But then as we move up the course, so where GBR is getting now, they're at the top of Governor's Island. That's where I'm sitting. There's a really nice breeze sort of funneling down the shoreline. So it is really shifty out here and really gusty. I think what we'll see is we'll probably see a left turn at this next gate and then early jibe to get away from that lee of Governor's Island. But it's going to be pretty hard out here for the sailors. It looks like those foiling manoeuvres are really tough. And as you said, you just don't want to get in the way of somebody else and mess up your race.
Giles Scott makes the move across, takes the wheel away from Hannah Mills, the strategist. Luke Parkinson's the last man to come across, and now they're up and sailing again, trying to get up on the foils. Maximum speed here as they approach the next gate. It'll be gate number 3, Emirates GBR with the lead. Denmark has moved into second place now, with the Australians holding on to third.
Well, how much does confidence do for you? They couldn't buy a win a few weeks ago, and now they can't avoid them. But Emirates Great Britain just sailing the boat smoothly, and they've got out ahead. You can just see France and the United States, they made a mistake on that first downwind leg, and look, hammered back to 9th and 10th.
1, working away. Yep.
Slow and steady, calm maneuvers and calm communication on board Emirates GBR. As we said, they won the last event with Giles Scott, the new man at the helm, taking over for Sir Ben Ainsley, who stepped aside into a management role, putting his focus on the America's Cup coming up this fall. But great battle going on here for second, third, and fourth with Denmark, Australia, and Canada.
I think we just saw that little graphic there, Todd, of the disturbed wind coming off the boat in front. It was coming off Rockwool, Denmark, and it was going on to Canada and United and Australia. And that's the fact. As soon as you're back in the pack, there is a lot of disturbed wind. Your first choice is maybe not the best choice anymore. You've got to make decisions based on that. So the art of it is how can you pull back through the fleet, and New Zealand have been that boat normally.
Keep an eye on the Kiwis. They are the current overall leaders in the series after 11 events, and they have always seemed to find a way to get themselves through the fleet. They were back in 8th place, now they moved up to 7th, make it 6th.
Well, but they got stuck on the Spanish a little bit then, as we see Great Britain are firing away out in front. Rockwool, Denmark, how much do Rockwool, Denmark need a win here in New York to give themselves a chance of that top 3?
Dane's currently sitting in 5th place overall, 7 points out of the 3rd and final position in the grand final. And of course, they are behind France as well, who sit in 4th.
Left gate by 100 now.
Copy.
Okay, that's interesting from Hannah there. She's saying if you turn left at the bottom here, that's 100 metres less distance that you'll sail. However, does that put you in more wind? Does that put you in better current?
Okay, cancelling.
Communications between Hannah and Giles Scott.
Yeah, nice, boys. Okay, turning up 2.
That's 1 and in right.
1, working up.
Better keep clean with these little personal battles when we can.
Okay.
Keep clean at Rockwool and try to attack up the upwind.
Copy.
Self-coaching. I mean, that's perfect. It's exactly what you said. If you get tangled up with other boats and you compromise your own performance, you're going to be slow. So expect Slingsby to go straight and turn right at the bottom here with Rockwool, Denmark turning left. That gives him the opportunity to sail his own path, his own breeze. So he's sailing a little bit more distance, but he's going to have space. He should be able to go faster from it.
So through gate number 4, it is still Emirates GBR out in front. Nikolai Sehested and Rockwool, Denmark have moved into 2nd place with Tom Slingsby, the Australians, in 3rd. And here comes Phil Robertson, the Canadians, top 4 with Nathan Outridge in 5th.
Listen here. Big wine, boys.
Pretty big gaps opening up here, Todd. Quite surprising to see that, really. I think it's just, you know, as soon as the boats find that rhythm, if they do fall off the foils, they do slow up, as can happen in the pack. The gaps open up really quickly. But New Zealand, well, they're back to 6th, still struggling to get a good start at the moment, the Kiwi crew.
I think it helps Australia here as well that it's a much more open course. They do tend to do better when they've got more space to stretch their legs and hopefully close the gap with that British and Danish team. But it does make it then trickier for the Kiwis. You know, they are sailing up the course, they do sail less distance, but they've just got a bit more room that it doesn't make it quite as easy.
Steve, I want to go back to that strategist role. We heard from Olympic gold medalist Hannah Mills, who's the strategist for Emirates GBR. She is calling things out, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Giles Scott will always do what she is calling out.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's about getting information onto the boat. You can't make good decisions without good information, but at the end of the day, not everyone will see things exactly the same all the time, and you have one final decision maker on the boat. I mean, they'll have decided that. I imagine it's Giles.
We've got to be a little wary of that bottom left corner now with the tide change.
Oh, that's interesting. So that bottom left, so the side in near Governor's Island, they're saying the tide will start changing in there first. So rather than going from left to right, it's going to start going right to left. So the treadmill starts to work against you. You don't want to be in that side and running. You don't want to run against the treadmill if you can help it, Tom.
Yeah, I think if we can get it, it's good, but...
Tide's with us at the minute.
But yeah, back to your point. There you go. Giles and Hannah, constant communication, but at the end of the day, like anything in life, you need to have one decision maker at the end of it, and that will be decided before the event. Hannah will be given information, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with Giles.
No problem jibing on the mark, Rob.
no issue boats at the moment.
Rob isn't on the boat. Rob's in the coach booth. So that's their coach, Robbie Wilson, and he's talking to them about the big picture strategy. And I think that's a real unique feature of Season 4 coming on. The coaches on the shore are communicating live, and they're effectively a 7th sailor on the boat. So there's an awful lot of information coming in. Probably less so from the two grinders at the front, because they're working pretty hard and they'll be blowing pretty hard. But yeah, it's a big communication game.
Yeah.
Nikolai Sehested, the driver for Rockwell, Denmark.
We'll go to M1. Really nice pressure coming down. Happy to sound a little higher if you want.
We've had some interesting tactics here by the Danish. They've worked on covering the Australians, so almost mimicking where the Australians turning to make sure that they don't get that advantage by splitting away from the Danish.
Stand by.
How big a moment for Rockwell, Denmark, though. I mean, ultimately, you think about this in the pressure of the season. Australia, they're not in that final. They're not home and dry. There's a lot of pressure on Slingsby here. 3rd place, he'll be pretty happy with that. But he's not going to like seeing Rockwell, Denmark ahead of him. Although Rockwell, Denmark have just done a poor jibe in the middle of our screen. They've fallen off the foils. They might still be okay if they can pop it straight back up.
Race number 1 will go the way of Emirates GBR as they approach the finish line. The USA in 10th place. They should not factor in this at all. And we will take a bow and hand the first win to Giles Scott and Emirates GBR as they get the win in New York City.
Tight moment there. The United States, of course, have still got to go upwind a little bit and get away there. So it might have been slightly confusing for people watching. But clear win for Emirates Great Britain, and yeah, Hannah pretty happy with the first one. About winning the last one that counts, though, Todd.
Emirates GBR fighting against the lap traffic as they come through the finish line. The USA still has to go down to the gates at the bottom, top of your screen, and then come back up as they sit in 10th. And we got a nice little battle here. Canada and Australia getting together.
Canada had the right of way, but as soon as they leave that mark, Canada have got to keep clear of Australia now. Expect Australia to push. He looks like he's clear ahead. Slingsby just enough, but Phil Robertson, he loves a bit of action on those final turning marks.
The Aussies came round that, though, with 20 k/h more speed, just accelerating through that turn.
So it's Denmark that holds on for 2nd place here in race number 1, and Tom Slingsby, the defending champion in the series, he will take 3rd, with Canada grabbing 4th. Remember, it's 10 points for the win, 9 for 2nd, 8 for 3rd, all the way down to 1 point for last place. And unfortunately, that is where the USA is sitting right now as France holds on to 9th. The Kiwis have salvaged something at us like they always do, Stevie. They will hold on and take 5th.
They do seem very good at the comebacks, but I think they'd still be pulling their hair out on the shore to actually try and get a decent start in there. They're just struggling to quite hit the timing. Again, they're pretty well set to make it to the final on board that New Zealand boat, but Pete Burling talked a lot before the event about momentum, and I feel like maybe the momentum's not fully with them at the moment. They're very fast, they sail through the fleet well, but they've got work to do.
Nathan Outteridge brings his boat in as they cross the line in 6th place after a great start. Remember, they were running the top 3 all the way up to 2nd place after one leg, but they dropped back. The top 6, though, not terrible for them. Diego Botín, winner in Bermuda 2 events ago. Disappointing day for them as they will finish in 7th place, with the Germans coming in 8th. And then the battle is on for 9th and 10th. There you see at the top of your screen in the distance, it is France and the USA in a little bit of a match race for the last 2 positions.
It's disastrous for France, that is, Todd. They can't afford this if they want to get to this grand final. Big, big problem.
So it's Emirates GBR that comes to New York City and gets the win in race number 1.
Talk about the ley line, please. There. 3, 2.
Well, what a race for Emirates GBR, fresh off that victory in Halifax, Canada, and they come back in race number 1 and get the win. Not necessarily the very best start, but they were in the mix, Stevie, and everyone else has said, stay out in front and stay away from everyone else, and that's exactly what Giles Scott did. He, Hannah Mills, and the rest of the crew kept it simple.
Well, they were on the inside, weren't they? I thought Denmark were probably the fastest and the closest to the line, but they had the inside position, short leg to Mark 1, dominated from there.
So the France will beat the home team for 9th place, and the USA will finish dead last in 10th. All right, lot to unpack here on race number 1, day number 1 at the Mubadala, New York Sail Grand Prix here on the New York Harbor. Great Britain already has 10 points, Denmark has 9, Australia has 8, and the Americans have 1. Only the top 3 teams will race in the event final. That comes after 5 fleet races.
New Zealand have changed things up here, Todd. Look, they've turned back a bit early. They've not put themselves out the back, given a little bit more chance to find a way through here. United States late in. France, they're the boat, left-hand side of screen, that are going to try and wind it up from a long way out. That didn't work too well last time, but if they've got their timing right, it could be a lot better. New Zealand, slow at the moment, but well positioned. United States turn in late. Australia up and foiling. 23 seconds to go. Australia and Switzerland are well positioned at the moment, but it's who's got the gap. There you go. That's our pole predictor gold star on Australia at the moment, but can they execute from here? New Zealand are foiling at the bottom of the line. Australia at the top of the line, and Switzerland hoping for a gap. How's your timing in the middle of the line here? Phil Robertson, he turns the boat down on board Canada, but it's a little too late, and it's going to be Switzerland with the perfect start through the middle. They should lead the fleet to Mark 1, and the Roos are going to come flying in from the top.
Enough to clear the gas. When we're here when we can.
So it's Nathan Outteridge and Switzerland that has the lead. Will they get the whole shot? France is off to their right, pushing Canada also. And here comes Australia and Germany. Those 5 boats way out in front.
Big change here into Mark 1. Great news for the Swiss. They should be well positioned. Going to go straight, but they need to manoeuvre quite soon after Mark 1, as they've been talking about less wind. New Zealand, they're in the middle of the pack, but it's not a great start for them again this time.
9. And angle. Being patient, go straight.
That's the voice of Will Ryan there talking to Nathan Outteridge, and he's trying to get them to turn up. That's because it got very light in their manoeuvre, and they've fallen off the foils nearly. I think they're back and foiling. They should be safe on board Switzerland.
France, meanwhile, completely off the foils up there. Kiwis as well, and the Canadians.
Here, Nathan, then. We're all good, we're all good. Almost sounded like he was trying to reassure himself then, but that is going to turn into a massive lead for Switzerland. It's got so light under the fans on the shore in Governor's Island.
And look at this. Almost all the teams now off the foils. The wind has dropped out, so let's go down on the water. Lisa Darman, what are you seeing as far as the conditions, and what are we getting in the next 10, 15 minutes?
Well, I can tell you the French, they're up and foiling. The New Zealanders, they're going to get into the next pressure next. So the best breeze is over towards Lady Liberty. So everyone that is able to get away from Governor's Island for the time being, they should be able to pop on the foils. But it's about patience out here. Look, it is really up and down. It is tricky. I think also when they do that maneuver and they've got to go back the way that they came, they're sailing massive angles out here, and it's pretty painful. But yeah, Switzerland are looking pretty nice with their old flight controller back on the boat, Francois Morvan.
Talking about flight controller, what a shot from the T-Mobile 5G POV camera there under the bow of the Switzerland boat. We saw the foils, we saw how high they were flying, and they did an absolutely brilliant job of that manoeuvre. Look at that, nearly 200-metre lead back in the pack. Well, it's hard when you're at the back, and at the moment, Rockwool Denmark are filling that place, really struggling for breeze. What's the Swiss going to do? I imagine a left turn to all the winds towards the bottom of our screen. If you turn right and head in towards the fans on Governor's Island, it's not a lot.
Which mark has wind, do you think? I almost feel like we've got to come back where we came from.
So Nathan Outteridge is talking to his strategist. They're looking for pressure out on the water. As Lisa mentioned, conditions very tricky right now. Maybe best to do exactly opposite, Stevie, what he just came from.
I think he'll look to turn back straight away here. Here we go, yeah, they're going to turn right. It's a little bit what Emily said. That right turn at the bottom's favoured for saving yourself manoeuvres, but you don't want to head too much towards the top of our screen and towards the landmass of that island. Any landmass tends to block the breeze. No skyscrapers, but even in this light winds, even a low landmass like Governor's Island will be affecting things. And New Zealand, there we go. Hocus pocus, he's out of the fire there. Burling's got him back up to third from a poor start.
So Switzerland out in front, France in second, New Zealand all the way up to third. Then it's Canada, Spain, and the USA.
And it's a shocker here for the French team, who were doing so well. They've come off the foils in that final manoeuvre and look like sitting ducks.
How does that happen, Stevie? I mean, have they just sailed into a pocket of no breeze?
Well, it's a little bit, every time you manoeuvre, you lose speed, and ultimately, when we see the boats foiling, the speed they've got generates its own wind. It's a speed-generated wind. We call it apparent wind in sailing. It's like when you're driving along in a car, there can be no wind, but if you stick your hand out the window, there's a lot of wind. So the fact that the boats are moving, they're generating their own wind. If you make any mistake, slow down, suddenly there's a lot less wind. And there's what the fact of things, they've fallen off the foils. They've got no speed, they've got no apparent wind. It's hard to get back on the foils.
And on days like these, if you come off the foils, it's not just 50 meters, it's a couple hundred, as we've seen here.
Diego Botín and the Spanish have moved up to 5th place.
And you can just see, look at the screen here, Todd. It's not a lot of wind at the bottom. As you look towards the top right-hand corner of our screen, you can see some dark patches on the water moving down. That's a sign that there will be more wind coming down. But I just think in general, as you move up the course, there's more wind on average. So this bottom of the course, there's a lot of opportunity to overtake, but there's an awful lot of opportunity to have a bit of a disaster and get yourself stuck.
That's good news for the Swiss, who they have come off the foils in the middle of the course there, but moving into that darker pressure now, hopefully extending their lead.
Todd, we've not had to talk about time limits for quite a while now, and I'm a bit worried we might have to if this breeze doesn't come back to pop the leading boats up onto the foils. Australia stuck in the middle of the pack, but Sejested, he's out the back. And that's not good news for the Danes. It's, of course, this big battle for the top 3 grand final places. And for France, for Spain, for Australia, and for Denmark, it's crucial they come out of this first day here in New York with some good scores.
What else is shocking is the team that won the first race, Emirates GBR, currently are mired in 10th place behind the Germans and the Danes.
There we go,
Giles Scott was talking about doing a left turn at the bottom. I guess if you're last, it's probably time to roll the dice.
It's good news at the moment for the Swiss and Kiwi teams who are starting to see 20k an hour of wind pressure at the top of their rig.
Look at that, Outridge. He's got the Swiss boat. He's going parallel nearly to that yellow line. What does that yellow line on our screen mean? It's called the lay line. That means you can get to that next gate with no more manoeuvres. So for Swiss fans, it'll be good. Here we go, the Wind Whisperer. Let's have a listen to him.
I am getting a little lift here. We're quite
I know the left mark is favoured, so we would only take left if you think we can nail the jibe out of there.
go up a bit.
Talking about the plan, so this is Nathan saying it's going to be less distance to sail to a left turn, but I don't mind about distance at the moment. All I care about is staying in wind, so I'm going to do an extra manoeuvre. I'm going to sail extra distance, but I'm going to do it an awful lot faster. So look at that, he can nearly turn left in a one, Todd, but he's choosing to sail more distance to get in more wind.
Coming away in 2, 1, wing down, all the way down.
That was a really nice shot there as well, showing just how long they keep those foils down in the water when it's light like this. Having 2 foils in the water means double the lift, so trying to force the boats to stay foiling for as long as possible until they've built enough speed to stay stable.
And look at the rest of the fleet, all still down at the other gate as Nathan Outridge is looking at possibly lapping some of the teams out here, and it is still Switzerland out in front, New Zealand second, Canada in third, and then France. Remember, the race time is 16 minutes, and we still have a good 7 to 8 minutes to go in this race. So Outridge making great progress here on this leg, but the rest of the fleet is really struggling.
It's just hard if you get off the foils, and we're going to be interested to see what does the Kiwis do here. Do they? Okay, so there you go. Pete Burling, happy to roll the dice a little bit. Blair saying safer go the other way, turn right. Burling says let's turn left, but let's get out of there quick. What a view for the fans there, Todd. Look how many people have turned up. And we saw some fans under Lady Liberty, plenty of fans there in our adrenaline zone, getting the full adrenaline hit now with the Kiwis coming close by.
So Blair Tuke crosses over first. And here comes Pete Burling. He'll take the wheel. Boy, they are really high. Look at that.
Yeah. Andy Maloney not shy to push it.
Where do we go here?
As Liv Mackay runs into the middle, they're looking out. The trouble when the boats... Oh my, have a look at this. Looks like a great call for the Kiwis at the moment. That could be a deceiving camera angle, but right now,
they're gonna pass
it looks to me like the Berling-Took team has found the breeze, and the Wind Whisperer, he's lost the lead here. He's having to sail nearly parallel to that course there at the moment. He's making no progress down the course. He's off the foils. Kiwis are on the foils, sailing towards more wind. Looks good for them.
And breaking news, this race will be suspended or ending at the next gate. So this is the last leg, and look at this. Once again, Peter Burling picking the perfect time to make that maneuver as he pulls into the lead ahead of Switzerland.
Tell you what, Todd, there's a lot of pressure on this maneuver. That almost looks a bit rushed. They're
And
off
they
the
are
foils.
Definitely.
We just saw in the background that the Swiss were on the foils here. Crucial moments here. Can Switzerland nail the next maneuver?
And not only are Switzerland up on the foils, Canadians are as well, and aiming towards the Kiwis. It is a race now for the Kiwis to get some pressure and get back foiling.
Switzerland's in breeze. I like where the Swiss are at the moment. He should be able to stick this maneuver on board here. Pressure's on. How does he do? Oh, what a perfect time to go to our T-Mobile 5G camera. Does it stay put? Yeah, they're back on the foils. Swiss are going to do it from here.
They're about 300 meters away from the finish line in the shortened race. It is Switzerland who gave up the lead momentarily to the Kiwis, and then Peter Burling and New Zealand have found themselves a bit of a hole as they have lost that lead, and now Nathan Outridge can see the finish line less than 300 meters away.
Just when I said the Wind Whisperer had gone the wrong way, the Swiss, Nathan Outridge, he got it right at the end. Canada up to second at the moment, and they're sailing in that better wind.
Yeah, we saw Phil do an extra maneuver there to stay in the pressure and follow in the route of the Swiss team.
So Canada has moved up to second, France has moved up to third, and New Zealand has dropped back to fourth. Final maneuver for the Swiss.
H1 exit. Transition is heel. Emmett confirming we're finishing here.
Nathan Outridge just checking all the boxes,
Just checking with
making
his
sure.
coach.
And at this point, Stevie, they can put both holes in the water and just cruise across casually to the finish line. So what a race here in race number 2. It was shortened, but no matter. Nathan Outridge and the Swiss will claim the win in race two here in New York City.
It's tricky out there at the moment. Good work by the Swiss. The Kiwis are back up on foiling, showing us third. They should be able to stick this last maneuver, but for Canada, well, that's a huge moment for them. It's gone very, very well. And of course, for some of the crews, it could be about where they get round the top gate, gate number 3. That could be crucial for them.
Race will terminate in 4 minutes and 40 seconds from now.
Stiff neutral for me, please.
Stiff is neutral. And turning. Runners are going up.
Peter Burling coming back into play here. He dropped back to fourth. It looks like he's going to be able to salvage a third. So Switzerland got a 6th in race number 1. They get a first place in race number 2. Canada a 4th and a 2nd.
And a really rough moment again here for the French team, who were in second, moved back, dropped back. Now they're in 5th and stuck still off of the foils. Now, with a 9th in the last place, they really needed the points here. They are just on the edge of qualifying in the overall for that grand final, and they need every point they can get here in New York to make that happen.
Peter Burling and the black foils cross the finish line. They will finish in 3rd place. But it is Switzerland and Canada that get to the finish line first. They get the 1st and 2nd spots. Peter Burling holding on again, as we said, for 3rd to go with his 5th in race number 1. So the consistency, Stevie, is still there. I mean, they didn't have their best race, but somehow Peter Burling found a way to get the points in 3rd.
Yeah, they made a pretty clutch decision at Mark 1 that really pulled them up through the fleet, and I think that's been the trademark of their season, really. I don't see them having done a great job with the starts until they get to those final 3 boats, but Pete will tell me it doesn't matter until you're in the final 3 boats. That's the only race you've got to win. So, yeah, we see the Spanish here coming downwind. Nice result for them. They tend to do very well in these light, tricky conditions. They sail the boat smoothly. Look at that silky smooth turn there by Diego Boutin through their stay on the foils. They're going to glide across the finish line, and now we can see in the background,
here's the race.
You know, it's really, really tight with France and Australia. The French can't really afford for the Australians to overtake them here, but they have fallen off the foils. We've got 2 minutes and 50 seconds until the race terminates. What does that mean? That means that if Australia and France can get to this gate in that time, their result will stand. If not, go back to the positions at the previous gate. So pretty crucial for Australia and France to make the finish here and stick this.
Tom Slingsby able to take his hand off the wheel and get a good view.
Come on, let's just keep. Yeah.
All I saw there was anxiety. He just was just willing the boat to get back on the foils. At the moment, it's stuck in the water. He's struggling to get in the water. The French, though, they're coming into the finish. Kiwis really need to get out of the way. Bit of acceleration from the coach boat there. France are off the foils, but they're pretty lined up for the finish, and I think they're going to be okay to stay in fifth. It's so gusty. There's just more wind towards the fans. Up in the screen there, top right of corners, that's where the fans are on Governor's Island. There's more wind there.
And less than 2 minutes now until this race terminates.
So France really has about a minute 45 to see if they can drift across the finish line, because here comes Emirates GBR with speed at 25 kilometers an hour, and the Australians still have breeze.
Well, the Australians have really dropped off the foils, and you saw how tense Tom looked on the boat there. He's lost a place to Great Britain. We know how much places mean. Could be crucial for Giles Scott getting back towards sixth here. It's so tight in the pack. Painful for these crews, but that's just how it is. We're powered by nature. Nature turns on and off. Very, very cloud-driven day here with the thunderstorms in and around the place, causing the wind to be up and down.
So a minute away from termination, it looks like France is going to drift across just in time. The big question is who's going to finish in 6th and 7th? Will it be Emirates GBR, the winners of race number 1, or will it be Australia? We'll have to update that momentarily, but it looks like the French are in clean. France will take 5th. Big winners in race number 2, the Swiss. With the Manhattan skyline in the distance, the 10 international teams are now in the start box as we are 45 seconds away from race number 3. Remember, it's 10 points for the winner, 1 point for last. It's all about getting the maximum points. And Stevie, the dance begins. Where do you want to be?
Oh, the positioning's going to be so hard on this start line. It's a short leg to mark 1, so that inside position, the end of the start line nearer the top of our screen where New Zealand are sitting now, that's a pretty good place to be. But United States, they're up and foiling. Our pole predictor, the yellow dot at the top of the Danish wing there, they suggest they've got a great space, but I don't see how they're going to thread the needle from there right now. Who's got their timing right? Australia are foiling in the middle of the line, Switzerland towards the top of the line, but it's all about hitting the line when it turns wide at speed. France could have timed this perfect. They're coming through on the slingshot. The French look good. Oh, what a blanket start.
Early start penalty, USA and Australia.
Oh, they need to drop to the back of the fleet, and with just a 4-race series to get to the final, pressure on Australia. But France, Delapierre needed a start, and he slingshots out of the gun.
So Chief Umpire Craig Mitchell delivers the news to the Americans and the Australians. They'll have to drop back as they approach mark number 1. This is race number 3 here in New York City, and you got to like the position of both the French and the British.
Oh, the French are going to be able to hold on the inside there, and it's no distance to the first turn. New Zealand are on the inside. Expect them to split first. They'll be the first boat back out into clear wind, and it's all about the execution of the manoeuvre. Brilliant foiling jibe by the French.
The first 3 teams have all managed to execute that foiling jibe, which we know is critical at this first boundary where it is lighter under the shoreline.
There are the speeds across in both miles per hour and kilometers. Much different than what we had yesterday, as Lisa Darmanin reporting the weather and the wind is cooperated today. It is the French, it is the British, it is the Kiwis out in front with Phil Robertson, currently the Canadians' overall leaders after 2 races.
Interesting to see what happens here tactically, Todd. A lot of the teams looking to keep things simple manoeuvres-wise. Expect a split potentially here from New Zealand, and we're going to learn a lot about the course on this upwind leg. France lead, and they're well set up from here.
Waking up in 2.
Here we go, the British, they need a big result. They had a good first day, but they're just out of those top 3 places. It's so tight in the top 3. Spain, way out the back at the moment, and for the season points, let's remember it's all about that battle for the grand final in San Francisco. And Spain, they will not like the look of this, or will Denmark.
Currently, it is good news for GBR along Governor's Island shore. They've got 28 kilometers an hour of wind, while the French have slightly less further offshore, but anything can change.
So they'll make their way out the course on leg 3 of 7, as Stevie mentioned in the course preview. It's a tight course, Stevie, but there still are places where you can make passes.
Yeah, I think that the hard thing today is finding space. Interesting here, we saw New Zealand in the middle of the screen, and they'd chosen to turn away across the middle. Obviously, if you're France or Great Britain, it's kind of easy. You're leading out of one of the marks, you've got clear wind. It's if you're in the pack, how do you find an overtake? And I think the feature in New Zealand's season has been finding that space when there really isn't a lot of space. There you go, look at them, on their own, no surprise there, heading towards, well, we don't know what wind right now, but they're able to sail the boat free and fast, and that's what they're so good at.
Free and fast, and also making sure they do their maneuvers in the best pressure. We see a lot of the teams sail right up to the shoreline, try and maneuver in a lull and drop off the foils. Well, here, picture perfect.
There we go, on board with a 5G T-Mobile POV camera, on board with the black foils, the Kiwis looking very good. They are the overall leaders in the series so far after 11 events.
Push it all this way.
They're right back in it. They've got the right of way over Great Britain, but I think they're clear ahead. They are. Here we go. Let's watch the British manoeuvre here. Hannah Mills already on the new side. She's trying to look for the win. She's in that strategist role. Ian Jensen, he's across quick. Fast spin on the wheel.
Hey, yours. Straight. Small pressing.
Hannah Mills takes the wheel momentarily. Giles Scott crosses over. Remember, Emirates GBR coming off a big win in Halifax, Canada. Bit of a drought for them, but they are looking very solid.
And currently this would see them through to the final in that lead position, with Canada hot on their heels and the Kiwis. But the Swiss have some work to do if they want to steal that spot and make their first final.
Oh, and Canada, Todd, they've missed the final. They've choked, you might say, in the last 2 events. They've been so well positioned after day 1. Can Phil Robertson and his crew hold it together today?
It's like we said, Stevie, everyone seems to do well on day number 1. It's can you close the deal when the pressure's on day number 2, and that's the situation today. Only 2 races yesterday, there's normally 3, so we'll have 2 fleet races and then the event final. That's only the top 3 teams as they approach gate number 3.
Well positioned by Emirates Great Britain. They're going to lead round here. Big lead. Australia have got a penalty for going outside a boundary, I think. We might find out about that. It was a bit off our screen, but for France, for Great Britain and for Canada, they're well set. New Zealand are going to split the course again here. Should be able to find space with a right turn at the top, but it's been a great upwind leg for Giles Scott.
Coming down. Going further here. Yeah, going further, coming down. No low. 12. Up 5. Stand by. Forward. All the way, hit 3, 2, 1. Turning.
You see the boats that turn left at the top are all having to manoeuvre away from Governor's Island straight away. That shoreline right in front of them. Beautiful foiling manoeuvre by Canada. There goes Phil running across. Last man to cross will be Billy Gooderham, the flight controller. Here he goes.
Get more power out that jib, please.
Steve, it's amazing after all the work they're doing out there for the grinders, crossing back and forth, how calm their voices still remain.
Yeah, I mean, comms is key, isn't it, in this kind of thing, and that choreography is well practiced, and it's absolutely crucial. As soon as you see any of the teams sounding slightly heightened, you know things probably aren't going to go very well. Tempo is key.
So it's Great Britain, France, and Canada.
Pressure's going to increase as we go this way.
2-time Olympic gold medalist Hannah Mills. She is the tactician, Stevie. What's she seen and how is she spotting that pressure?
Well, she's looking for wind on the water. She's not talking about the pressure they're feeling in terms of their nerves and tension. She's talking about the wind on the water, and she's just looking for darker patches. But I think it's quite a hard read on the water today because there's a lot of current out there. Lisa, you're on the water. How are you feeling? How easy is it to see the breeze out there?
It's really difficult to see the breeze out here, and that's because when the water is moving because of the current, the wind ripples are very different. So the sailors, you look for the dark patches, the ripples on the water. So it is quite confusing. You might think there's some wind there, you go, and it's actually just current. So the current is playing with the tactics as well, but to me, that side away from Governor's Island definitely looks like it has more breeze. It's easier to do those foiling maneuvers. So I think, yeah, it's a really difficult day to be a sailor.
Here we go, Lisa, into gate number 4. This is going to be tight. New Zealand makes the turn first. Then it's Emirates GBR and the French, and they just passed behind them.
Yeah, it was right of way to Emirates and France there, so they've got round. But New Zealand, once again, they're going to lead out of a mark in clear wind. They've got a chance to attack. But last time, that right turn for Great Britain was a good move. They made a gain heading towards Governor's Island early. So let's see if that's the same again this next time. But the first 4 boats, they're away, they're down the road. And for Rockwool, Denmark, Germany, it's time to make a move.
And GBR maneuvering away from the island there, and they have managed to stay on the fours. We saw the French briefly touch down in theirs, but brilliant sailing by the British team.
Leg 5 of 7 will have 2 races and then the event final. And right now, Emily, it's Great Britain, Canada, and New Zealand that would be in there. And surprising, nowhere do you see on there the Australians.
Surprising indeed, but look, they're right out at the back, 9th place and with a penalty.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the penalty. I've heard rumours that they've had a glitch on their screen from our chief umpire, Craig Mitchell, but we'll check back in on that as soon as we can. We'll see the Australian incident, I think, in a moment, potentially out on the water as we see. Here we go. We come on board the Australians. Oh, look at that. They get way high on the foil. Big crash down there. Oh, they've had a big issue there. Excuse us for the language on board. A bit emotional, as you can imagine. They just don't seem to catch a break on that Australian boat at the moment. And, of course, the trouble with flying out the water and crashing down like that is the water's then full. The boat's full of water. Anyway, back to the front. And what a 4 race we've got going on here. Perfect foiling from 2 of the teams. But Canada, they're up to 2nd. They're on the charge, but France have got the right of way. Who's going to call the bluff here? Will Canada try and cross? It's so tight.
No way Phil Robertson's backing down. No way.
Oh, Contant hunted him there. He turned towards him, but I think that was clean for me. The French couldn't quite get to him. New Zealand have space, but Giles Scott's a bit of a masterclass from the British at the moment.
Giles Scott, Emirates GBR out in front. Leg 5 of 7. They'll go through gate number 5, then they'll come back up course and make a quick right-hand turn in front of the fans on Governor's Island for the finish. That would be a win in race number 3. And for Emirates GBR, that would give them a win in race number 1 and a 7th in race number 2 and a 1st. So, Stevie, points would be fantastic for the Brits.
Yeah, so important. And really we see back in 7th at the moment the Swiss. They're the ones that need to make the move. We're on board the French again there. Look how high they're foiling that boat out of the water. Right there, manoeuvred right in front of the New Zealand team. Absolute aggressive manoeuvre, but at the moment it's the Canadians on the charge. They look to me like they're going to be very, very tight with the British. Right of way with Canada here. What does Giles Scott and Great Britain do? He chooses to cross, but it's going to be a very, very tight moment here. Right turn for Great Britain, left for Canada, and it's all on. There's just 1 leg left down to before the finish.
A really impressive leg there for Canada.
Yeah.
Don't forget, at that bottom gate, they were fighting for 4th place and all the way up into 2nd, almost 1st now.
So Phil Robertson's worked a little bit of voodoo magic out on the course here today because he is now back into 1st place. GBR's dropped to 2nd, France is in 3rd, the Kiwis have dropped to 4th, and Denmark rounding out the top 5. The Americans, this has not been their regatta, Stevie, and what can you say? I mean, Emily, why are the Americans struggling so much?
So looking at the data from the Americans yesterday, we saw that the US team were the most dynamic on the wing controls and the flight control. And that does make sense. You've got a new wing trimmer in there who's trying to figure out how everything works, but he might be being a little bit too trigger happy, making too many changes, which is going to make it really hard for Taylor Canfield to drive. So I expect if they can figure out how to get locked in, a bit more stable, we should see some better maneuvers and less losses.
Jeremy Wilmot put into that role, so it's a very tough baptism by fire for him and the Americans as they look to make moves. Meanwhile, back at the front of the race here as we come down to the closing moments, it is Phil Robertson and Canada that has taken the lead ahead of Emirates GBR, and it's 1 more turn around gate number 6, and it is the Canadians that lead the Brits with a finish line shortly.
Buddies. That's how you sail a race.
Not lacking confidence, Phil Robertson brings it in. The race is not over just yet, but barring disaster, Phil Robertson will be celebrating a big victory. That gives Canada a 4th place finish, a 2nd, and now a 1st.
Great performance by the Canadians there. That puts them in the box seat ahead of this 4th race, and in the box seats in the race to make the top 3 here in New York. But
so
been in this position before.
Yes. Can they close out on this next race? Canada gets the win here in New York. Emirates GBR holds on for 2nd, and France, Contant Delapierre in 3rd.
Huge gains by this Danish team as well in this past leg, moving up the fleet.
But they need more than this. They've got to make the top 3 here, Nikolai Sehested. He's not there at the moment. It's a good performance, but they're in behind New Zealand, and they're not that far ahead of Spain. Spain in 6th, and they really need season points. But the big story, 9th place at the moment, left-hand side of our screen there, Australia. We're hearing they've got data issues on board the boat. They're struggling to know exactly where the course boundaries are, hence they've had a few boundary penalties. But the Australians, they need a result here to have a chance of making that grand final in San Francisco.
Don't have to panic just yet with the Australians sitting on 71 points. They're 6 points clear in the overall ahead of France. So as long as they keep France basically from making event finals today and in San Francisco, they're going to be in good shape. But you'd expect a lot more for the 3-time reigning defending champions. And Stevie, they've run into a patch of bad water.
Yeah, they want to keep it in their own hands, don't they? And they want to get sailing fast and the boat working well for them. They look so fast in training, and then it's been a bit of a battle again since then as we see Spain. Solid result here, but potentially not going to be enough for a final performance, although with only 4 races in that race to get to the top 3, it's going to be so tight going into this final race. And there we see top of screen as well, Todd. The Americans, that's now 6 10th place finishes in a row, and I don't think they've beaten another boat since Sydney this year. So that's a lot of pressure on board that American team to start to find some results.
Nathan Outteridge is a race that he'd rather forget. The Swiss team finished 6th in race number 1 yesterday, and they came back and got the win in race number 2. So for them to drop off now down to 8th place, they're going to need a win and some help if they have any chance of making it into the final.
We'll just roll into a slow jog.
And it'll be Australia going around gate number 6. The Australians will take 9th, and the USA, as Stevie pointed out, will finish 10th place. 3 races here in the USA on home waters. Not the performance they were looking for. So less than a minute to go. Emily, final thoughts. Where do you want to be on this start line?
I think, as we saw with the French, that top end of the line paid well, but only if you hit the line with speed. Right now, it's not looking prime for the US team, still off the foils.
There we go, 41 seconds to go, and now we can see the fleet lining up out the back. Rockwall, Denmark, they're trying to find space, they're nearly foiling. New Zealand are controlling things. They want that inside position, the downwind end of the line, to try and hope that they can be on the inside at Mark 1. Switzerland, here comes Nathan Outteridge. He's winding it up from range. Tight battle with France. He's clear ahead at the moment. Looks like he's going to have the proper positioning here. It's all about timing, though, here. Who's got it right? New Zealand still off the foils at the bottom. Switzerland, too early. Nathan worried about being locked out. It's going to be Australia in the middle of the line, USA in the middle of the line. Pole predictor sits on Canada. All about timing. De La Pierre with 4 seconds to go. Threads the needle one more time. Oh, the French are fast at the gun as well. I love the positioning. De La Pierre, oh, he's absolutely nailing it today, finding a way to weave through the crowd. And as they all race away from Lady Liberty, it's going to be a sprint to Mark 1, but France look good.
Great start for Taylor Canfield and the Americans.
Canada are getting high, Todd.
Little loose, they got to back it down.
Oh, just avoid being last, that's what they said.
Here we go, mark number 1. It is the French controlling it the whole shot. They get in the circle first. Then it is Australia, New Zealand, and the Danes.
Oh, it's almost a repeat of the first race. New Zealand are going to be the first to manoeuvre away, hoping to follow the French, but Canada, they put themselves in the pack at the back there. They flew too high, got too aggressive,
Denmark
and Canada
also
have got a lot of work to do here.
Denmark was in a top 5 position, and they came off the foils, and now they sit in dead last. The Americans picking up a penalty as they go out of bounds.
Oh, it's so many little mistakes happening. It's really tight after Mark 1. It's great for the fans on Governor's Island there, but the mistakes come fast and furious. And Australia showing a second at the moment. If Slingsby ever needed a race out of the hat, this is it. But they're well positioned on board that green Australian boat now. France, they manoeuvre. They're struggling to stay on the foils.
Critical moment for the French team. Still down at 27 kilometers an hour. That's not enough to get foiling. They are going to lose that position to the Brits next.
The magic number to look for is 30 kilometers an hour. We see it turn green on the top of the wing there, and that suggests they'll make it, but it's the 2 old dogs at the front of the fleet. Slingsby, he needs a result. He's getting a result right now, but it's still a race to the final. Canada in there, 6th at the moment. I think that'll be enough for them to hold to a spot in the final.
Yeah, my rake. Here we've got a H1 tack here. Yep.
At the moment, it is just enough to keep Canada at the top of that leaderboard, 31 points. Kiwis and Great Britain tied on 30, and Australia, there's then a big gap, 25 points.
And we've talked about this before, Emily. You can have one bad race in the 5 normal fleet races, but Australia, they finished 3rd in race number 1, they finished 6th in race number 2, and 9th in race number 3.
Yeah, right now, if the Aussies have any chance of making the final, they need the Brits to have a bad one.
Okay. Right now, the Brits are holding down 5th.
Here we go, we're on board Canada along this first leg. So the thing, Billy Gooderham just pushing that ride height really high, and it gets so loose as they get too high on the foil here.
And as they get out of control, they're almost taking the US team out. Look how close those two boats get. You can see them just on the left of the screen.
And we know how close friends they are.
Well, yeah, that was certainly a big moment there for Canada, but they kept themselves in the race. Great Britain snuck round there. Giles Scott again. Here are the French. Now, how well do they manage to execute this manoeuvre? They get it high again, and the rudders, they just get a bit too slow. No lift on the rudders, and they fall off the foils in the manoeuvre. It's so hard manoeuvring accurately out here in these gusty, changeable conditions. But Australia, big lead at the moment, and for New Zealand, it's all about making the final. It's all about momentum, and at the moment, it looks good for the New Zealand crew to make that final.
We don't want to be too...
Yeah, as you can see on the top left there, Canada, New Zealand through to the final, GBR through to the final as well, for just fighting off the Aussies.
Right turn, eh?
It's interesting how a lot of the crews are choosing to come offshore. They're probably a little bit slightly beneficial current here helping them upwind, and the breeze is definitely good offshore. And as soon as you do get away and open out in the race, Todd, if you are in those front through places, what you want to do is control the environment you're in, which is put yourself in more wind if possible.
Well, right now it's showing 13.8 kilometers across the course. Lisa Darmanin, are you seeing any areas down there where there'd be more advantageous pressure here on leg 3 of 7?
Angle. A little earlier inverts there.
Certainly at the moment looks like a big gain to New Zealand by going that little bit further offshore over the Australians. Looks like New Zealand are well set. Australia will dip behind and will split the course. So Australia should be sailing back to where the New Zealand crew made a gain. So this should be good news for the Australians. Potential advantage, but it's a dynamic, changeable environment at the moment. Nothing highlights that more than seeing the British back to 5th place now, and they'll just be clinging to that place in the final.
So at gate 3 is the Aussies and the Kiwis going at it yet again. That's 1st and 3rd in the overall standings as they continue to try to climb and add points to their account. Get ready for the grand showdown coming up in July 13th and 14th in San Francisco.
Todd, think about the race for the grand final. When I look at the results on the left there, Denmark in 10th, they so need big points here. France are giving themselves a chance, but Australia, they might not be in the final, but they were showing as being 4th overall, which when you think about the season as a whole, that's going to be a good result to come away from New York with.
As it stands right now, it would be Canada, it would be Great Britain, and it would be New Zealand in the final today.
There you go, it worked out well for Australia there, Emily.
And USA might not come 10th.
They're up to 9th at the minute, that is for sure. But
Way to go, glass half full. Way to go, glass half full, Em.
It's been a good gain, though, coming offshore. So now it's New Zealand heading back to the advantageous side of the course. So it'll be interesting here. There's going to be advantage New Zealand when the two boats meet again. They'll have the right of way, and it's a real tussle between these two titans.
And the wind has come up now to 15.2 kilometers an hour as they make their way down to gate number 4. Lisa Darmanin, if you can hear us, are you seeing any other pressure, any other areas on the course that are more advantageous?
Well, it definitely looks like there's more pressure over towards Lady Liberty, which is where we're seeing the gains. Also good shifts, which means there is a little bit of opportunity to sail less distance. The tide is starting to rip out of the Hudson, so that's also playing with the game a little bit. One thing that's really interesting is we have had a few teams really fall off the foils dramatically. So a little bit of messy chop out here, I think, messing everybody about.
Good to know. So they make their way through gate number 4. They'll head back down, and then it's up one more time, and then the right-hand turn to the finish line. And now the fleet in full pursuit of Slingsby and Burling. You've got France, you've got Canada, and you've got Emirates GBR.
Yeah, and you can see these blue marks on our screen running up. That's the direction of flow of the current. So it means making it down to this gate 4 is tricky to judge. You don't want to cut it too fine, otherwise the treadmill's going against you and it's stopping you get round that mark. So it's a really tight moment at the bottom of the course. When you're round there, breathe a sigh of release as the treadmill's taking you up towards the next gate.
Yeah, and when we looked at the tidal models for today, we could see that there was more flow along that shore. So that suggests why these teams are all trying to get close into Governor's Island, even though we know there is a little bit less wind there.
Well, it's just a minor miracle that they were able to clear the traffic. This is one of the busiest areas around, with ferries and weekend folks on their boats and obviously international transport coming in and out of here, and now the 10 best sailors on these foiling F-50s have taken control of New York Harbor. And right now it's Australia, New Zealand, France, Canada, and GBR. That's 5 boats battling for 3 positions in the event final.
We've just got to do what we're doing. Copy.
It's Australia, that's exactly right. He's just got to do what he's doing. He's got to control what he's controlling. He can't affect any of the other boats from there. He needs to take a win and hope for a mistake from the British crew at this stage. But as I see, in the race for the grand final, which is where Tom Slingsby needs his head to be, and we're on board our 5G, T-Mobile 5G POV camera there. And what I love here is look in the back left-hand corner, those rudders, how high they're out of the water. The white lines are effectively a warning sign for Jason Waterhouse. He's not too worried about it. You can see the flex on the rudder. They're pushing the ride height, how high they're flying the boat. So high.
Unfortunately for the Australian team, in order for them to make it through to the final, the Great Britain team would have to come 9th.
And right now they are sitting in 5th place and holding steady. The interesting thing, though, is you do a little bit of math. If France does make it into the final, which is not really a possibility right now, Australia would just lose the max of 3 points. They would still stay in 3rd place overall going to San Francisco. So right now they're in good shape.
We don't need to do anything special to make the final here, correct?
Yeah, copy.
That'll be a little check from Giles Scott back to his coach on the shore. He's got Rob Wilson. He's got the same spreadsheet as Emily's using to keep us up to speed here. And Rob will be reassuring Giles that no, he doesn't need to do anything too special, as we see bottom left corner comfortably in at the moment. So barring disasters, that will be our top 3 going into the final. So some relief for Canadian fans that have seen finals snatched away from them in the previous 2 events.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that race number 3 that's going to do the Aussies in, where they finished in 9th place, having those technical issues on board, no fault of their own, but that's just the way racing is on these really high-tech foiling F-50s.
As I say, though, the 4th place there, and I do not see the words France or Spain above them on the points.
That's what's important.
So that means they gain points in that battle for the top 3 positions. Everyone they needed to beat is behind them. So if you're pragmatic, which I know their coach Ben Durham is very pragmatic, he's going to come on and say, you know, it's not as bad as it looks, it's not as good as it looks. We're still in the final in San Fran.
But you've got to feel a bit gutted, Stevie, if you are France and if you are Spain and if you are Denmark, because this was your opportunity to pounce on the Aussies.
Yeah, I mean, I just see the middle of the screen there, Nikolai Sehested on board Denmark. I mean, they must be absolutely distraught on that Danish boat, because this last half of the season, what looked like such a solid performance, they just haven't managed to find that consistency again.
And this will make it virtually impossible for the Danish to make that final in San Francisco. Now, the Spanish are would still qualify for the final currently, but that gap between the boats behind is a lot smaller.
As they come towards the finish line, it is Australia and Tom Slingsby that get the win in race number 4 here in New York City. Peter Burling, close behind, will finish in 2nd, and the France Quentin Delapierre will get 3rd, but it will not be enough to push them into the event final.
There we go, it's tight back in the pack. Phil Robertson's made it a little bit more interesting, sailed a bit wide on that downwind leg, but he's still going to comfortably come round here in 4th. And Nathan Outridge on board the Swiss boat. It's just not quite clicked for them today. They came in a top 3 position after 2 races. It's going to be a decent event for the Swiss, but still no race in a final, which is very, very disappointing for them.
Well, Phil Robertson has certainly answered the critics, those who said maybe he can't close the deal, and they have done just that today. Did just enough. They finished 4th in race number 4 after a win in race number 3. So Canada will be moving on to the event final after a tremendous performance on day number 1, where they finished 2nd and 4th.
Some view of the crowds, it's a huge stadium site they've got there on Governor's Island. Some view, and it's going to be a brilliant final with this breeze we've got happening here as we see the United States, right-hand side of the screen, up and foiling. Nice manoeuvre for them. They're going to bring it home, but the Spanish in 7th still was going to be probably okay in their chase to the final in San Fran.
And the question is Nikolai Sehested going to reel in the Americans? He comes around that last gate with a lot of speed, and now the race is on. Who's going to finish in dead last? And it does not look like it'll be the Stars and Stripes here in race number 4. Taylor Canfield and the Americans will hold on with speed as they come across the line in front of their fans on Governor's Island. The Americans will finish in 9th, with the Danes finishing in 10th.
Stay tuned in, guys.
Tight finish there. That's disappointment for Rockwell Denmark, though. That's a huge day for them. They're going to take some serious regrouping after that because they've just looked so strong all season.
I'll be a vote, guys.
Well, not quite the performance the Americans wanted here on home waters, but they'll have another opportunity in just about 3 weeks' time out in San Francisco to put on a show. They have no opportunity of making it into the grand final, but they certainly can go out with a big bang in San Francisco Bay. What a day of racing. 2 races down and 1 event final yet to go with 3 top performing boats.
Here we are, 40 seconds to go, Todd, until the final start. The blue marks on the screen moving from top of our screen to the bottom. That's the current on the water. That's the treadmill that's lifting the boats all up this way. Giles Scott on Great Britain. He'll like the space he has right now, but all the boats are well spread out. I think I'd rather be starting at the top end of the line on our screen. It's the more downwind end, but it's nearer the top of our screen. Canada and Great Britain, they're in a fight. It's all about winding it up now. Pole Predictor has the Canadians in the optimum position at the minute, but Giles Scott shuts the door. Here we go. 10 seconds to go. New Zealand show us the favourites. Can they execute from here? It's all about timing now. Line's going to turn white. How's your timing, Phil Robertson? Beautiful from the Canadians, but they put the bow in. How costly will that slow down be? On the inside, it's New Zealand. Tactically, they have the right of way, but Canada and Great Britain, can they wind it up? Can they get enough speed to roll over? I think New Zealand are going to lead at Mark 1.
As they approach mark number 1, they go 3 wide here in the event final at the Mubadala New York Sail Grand Prix. It's New Zealand, it's Canada, and it's Emirates GBR.
Oh, look at that. New Zealand had the right of way, and they forced the Canadians and the British high and wide here. New Zealand are going to be comfortably in the lead. First manoeuvre for Canada. Can New Zealand stick this manoeuvre? Pressure on. Great move by Canada. New Zealand match perfectly executed, and right now, big advantage to New Zealand. They hold the trump card.
Advantage to New Zealand, but the Canadians are the fastest boat on the course.
It's a lift in our favour, Josh. Even, you said.
Well, there we go. He's talking there. That's Phil. That's Peter Burling talking to Josh Jr. on the shore. They're talking about where the wind is at the moment. What direction is it? Slight disagreement on board there, but right now I think the priority's matching Canada. If New Zealand can exit the same mark as Canada, which is going to be a right turn for all the boats, I would suggest, then New Zealand will have a big controlling advantage. He'll turn. New Zealand are going to be faster coming in here.
Do you split the course?
Well, I think Great Britain definitely splits the course from here. Canada have got a harder decision to make. An extra manoeuvre could be costly at this stage. Time to roll the dice for Great Britain, but New Zealand, keep it tight, hang around, see if the Kiwis make a mistake.
And the Brits have to make one more maneuver, so they decide to split the course. But Stevie, it's going to cost them a lot of time and distance because they were late to make that decision, waiting to see what Burling and Robertson were going to do.
Yeah, well, they were out the back, and if you follow in third, that's a lot of disturbed wind. We can see now Canada, they're right dropping down into the disturbed air of New Zealand. New Zealand will look to turn with the Canadians here. They'll all head back towards the side of the course where Giles Scott's British team are, and now the British need a little bit of luck. They need there to be a bit more breeze there. Is it luck or is it skill, though?
And there we go. At the moment, we have a little bit more breeze with the Kiwis at the top of the screen, but only marginally so. The big question is going to be, what is the tide doing at the moment? We've heard that is currently ripping out of the Hudson River. The models had it better Governor's Island side, but that does change.
Ripping out the river, so that means it's moving from left to right on our screen. It's helping them up the course. It's giving them a little free ride up there. But what that also does is it increases the wind speed relatively felt by the boats, and more wind is, of course, good news. So more current, if it's helping you up there, is going to be good news. So still Great Britain are out of phase. They're in the race, Todd, but New Zealand are going to be keeping a tight eye on Canada. They'll look to manoeuvre directly in front of them next time.
All 3 boats within 100 meters of each other as we go down on the water. Lisa Darman, and where's the pressure coming from? Where do you want to put your boat?
I really think a right turn at the next gate is going to be strong. I think there's a little bit more pressure out of there, and then you're not fighting the current as much if Emily's models are correct. But, you know, New Zealand, they obviously they're doing better maneuvers than everybody else, and I think they're just getting a little bit of a jump. And even in the fleet racing, I thought they're upwind mode, so what they're doing now, it looks really slick. They're sailing higher angles than anyone else.
Well, they just set it up so well. We're on board here, T-Mobile 5G POV camera, and they're pushing it high on the ride height. That rudder in the back right-hand corner, you can see it shaking around. It's right on the rev limiter there. But I think what they've done well is they put a careful move in above the Canadians on the first turn out of gate 2, and they set it up to just lamp right in front of them and totally block the wind onto Canada the whole way across here. So it's a big gain for New Zealand, total control. Canada are going to have to turn right at the top. Does the New Zealand boat set up to turn to the right? I think they might go left turn, an early manoeuvre on board New Zealand.
The Kiwis with Blair Tuke and Peter Burley directing the black foils around. They make the turn, and it is a left for them as Canada and Emirates GBR still not quite there yet. And this is dangerous times for the rest of the competition because if Pete Burley finds open space and good wind, Stevie, he will check out and be gone.
Without being too putting the kiss of death on him, this race is done, barring a mistake from the New Zealand boat. Now they've got a big enough lead that they can easily cover off any move by the boats behind. It's just about executing manoeuvres, so it's really a race for second here. Canada have sailed a lot of extra distance to take that right turn. That's advantage Great Britain now. New Zealand, well, it's just a bit of a masterclass for the black foils at the moment.
Right now, priority for the Canadians is holding on to that second place. We've seen them too many times hand it up, get a third. And right now, there is that really tight battle in the middle of the fleet on that overall scoreboard. And if you look at that scoreboard, currently they're at the bottom of the rankings of those 4 teams at risk of losing their spot next season.
Canada has been into the event final 3 times this year and yet to close the deal. Right now, masterclass is being applied to the rest of the field as Peter Burling and the Kiwis, the black foils, Stevie, they get away from everyone. It's almost like they have agoraphobia. They don't want to be around people. Stay away from us, and they just do their own thing.
Well, they're just quite fast, aren't they? I mean, you know, the criticism I've always had for them is that they're not been very good at the starting in the fleet racing, and they've made it hard for themselves. But in the 3 boats, Pete's been on fire and a brilliant start. Don't underestimate how well he nailed that start. In total control, they've been able to dominate.
And the numbers are showing exactly that at the moment. They're 1.5K an hour average, faster speed than the other 2 boats. They've also sailed less distance.
So the wind remaining consistent throughout the day here on the second day of racing at the Mubadala New York Sail Grand Prix in New York Harbor. New Zealand, Canada, and GBR in the event final. On board underneath Emirates GBR with the T-Mobile 5G cam, and right now this is not the view that Giles Scott and Hannah Mills were looking for. Winners of the last event in Halifax, they are losing distance quickly to the front runners, the Kiwis and the Canadians.
Yeah, I mean, they were forced their hand at gate 2. I think it was fair enough to roll the dice at that stage. It was always going to be pretty hard once you're out the back. And we can see it's a slight case of, you know, the boat ahead's just got that advantageous position. New Zealand, they've managed to push well in. They don't want to get too close to that shoreline in case there's a bit less breeze. But I think Lisa's saying that there wasn't too bad. The wind seems relatively even on the course now, Lisa.
Fine around there somewhere.
Yeah, it's definitely even across the racetrack, and because the foiling manoeuvres are a little bit easier because the breeze has just picked up in general, it means the differential isn't as bad. Everyone seems to be sticking these manoeuvres, but you know, these storms are brewing, so we're really lucky that we got racing in today, and New Zealand's just looking just way slicker than everyone else.
Yeah, I think that's the word of the day, slick, as Peter Burling and team just go about their business. There you see the ripples on the water, Stevie. They just seem to be like a magnet attracted to that. They find the pressure and then they accelerate. We've seen them come out of starts in 7th, 8th place, and they end up, well, you know, top 3.
Well, they're just saying, well, I mean, I think while we're watching this, you see how accurately the boat is. The boat's tipped way towards the crew there. They're gaining maximum righting moment off that boat, maximum leverage on the foils. And I just think, have a minute to look at this. We're racing these F-50s in front of the Statue of Liberty, Manhattan in the background. It's unbelievable, the scenes out here. And I think it's a performance fitting of the scene that it's happening in front of on board the New Zealand boat at the moment. Andy Maloney, across he goes. He's going to be happy out there. They're well lined up for that gate. We can see the 2 marks in front. Probably only 2 more good manoeuvres for the New Zealand crew stand between them and the big prize in the Big Apple.
As they approach gate number 5, it is Pistol Pete and the Kiwis as they will make the long ride back up the course, and then it's a quick right-hand turn in front of Governor's Island and the Adrenaline Lounge. Just look how quickly and how smooth they make the transitions.
That's too much drop. Yeah. Copy.
Oh, it's like it's on rails.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
But I think as soon as they're out in front like that as well, there's just the time to have the calm temper. Their comms on board are always very impressive.
Right.
But we saw in a race yesterday when they were in a tight tussle with the Swiss, they pulled off a manoeuvre where it all looked a bit rushed and they paid the price. But the Canadians here, they're going to be happy with this second place.
Angle and stand
They've
by.
sailed well in this race, but
Yep.
to be honest, when you're up against the best, you can sail well, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's good enough.
Turning. Angle.
See the G-forces, how tough it is to make that transition on a turn. Phil Robertson comes over, takes the wheel.
Yeah, it's the grinders at the front of the boat that have to run across when the whole boat's turning. I think the fact they hang on is absolutely unbelievable. Final manoeuvre for the New Zealand crew here. Should be bread and butter for them in front of the fans to bring it home.
Mark number 6, and it is the Kiwis, the black foils, that'll bring it home and claim yet another victory here in season number 4, and they have punched their ticket into the grand final. Regardless of what happens in the racing in the Pacific Ocean in a few weeks' time, the Kiwis will have an opportunity to fight for the title. That is an amazing performance. That's 5 wins out of 12 events. The Kiwis take the win in New York City.
And that will put them in with 93 points going into this final.
Amazing performance. They came in with an 11-point lead over Spain. They increased that. Great showing by Phil Robertson and the Canadians. As they get into the event final, they will finish in 2nd, and they will take home 9 event points, or season points.
Yep, heading there now.
Emirates GBR will finish in 3rd. So back-to-back finals for the Brits as they win in Halifax and finish 3rd in New York City.
Well, it's good consistency for the Emirates Great Britain team. I think they're going to be pretty happy out there. I think all the teams are going to be happy. But for me, when we look ahead to San Francisco, the timing of Peter Burling on that start absolutely nailed it.
Going up, not down.
And the Kiwis now take a slow parade along the Adrenaline Lounge and the fans on Governor's Island with Manhattan behind them. New Zealand conquers New York City.